How Precure and Pokemon Teach Kids About Death. When I was a kid, I was burdened by one fatal truth, that my family had memories that I wasn't in. Pictures without me, places I never lived. The concept of time before one's birth is quite taxing on a child, partially because if there was a time before you, then there might be a time after you. Today we'll be examining how two anime movies explain these concepts to children. Pokemon and Precure, two of Japan's most successful kids shows. At a first glance, Mewtwo Strikes Back and Mana's Getting Married seem like polar opposites, but on closer inspection, the subject matter is quite similar. Both are heavily focused on memory and mortality, introducing these concepts to kids in a family-friendly way. They don't always agree, but that conflict is something I'd like to break down. Before we start, if you watch the Pokemon dub, I'm so sorry we're not discussing that film. The localization was a botched mess that wrote out nearly everything we'll be discussing. Thankfully, you don't need to know anything about either movie to watch this. Both are written with new viewers in mind, so let's get right into it. Obvious spoiler warning. For those unaware, somehow, Pokemon is a massive multimedia franchise, and the early anime gave viewers a weekly episodic adventure where Ash would meet new Pokemon/characters and hijinks would ensue. There wasn't much of a story as it was one of those endless anime you could pick up and drop, and this made the movie a rare opportunity. The movie was made alongside the anime, which required the staff to pick Ash's Pokemon a year in advance. Looking at interviews from Takeshi Shudo, the film's writer, he wanted to highlight the hierarchy between man and Pokemon while helping children understand their place in the world. There's a lot about him online in the Pokemon fandom, but I first knew him as the man who wanted Ash to die in the end. Despite that, his impact is greater than a few controversial ideas. While he's no longer with us, I'd like to acknowledge his impact on the film, which we'll be reviewing. Films are collaborative, so this isn't really an auteur kind of thing. I just think it's important because his thoughts do affect how you interpret this movie. Precure is a magical girl anime where regular girls gain powers to fight monsters that are corruptions of some everyday concept. Precure is quite similar to Pokemon in that it's an endless anime, but this time they swap the cast and concept every year. The movie we'll be covering is from Doki Doki Precure, which follows Aida Mana, a selfless girl who is willing to help anyone. Mana transforms into Cure Heart to fight evil. She has a fairy partner and uses various toys and attacks to power up. Mewtwo Strikes Back is about Mewtwo's existential struggle. In the world of Pokemon, there are two major species, humans and Pokemon. Humans catch and train Pokemon, who in turn obey them. But Mewtwo isn't like other Pokemon. He's far too strong to serve a human, because Mewtwo is a clone of Mew, a miraculous and rare Pokemon, and as a clone, he carries memories of Mew's life, a life he hasn't lived, and these become his sole focus. Mana's Getting Married is about accepting loss and finding the courage to face your own future. The movie opens on Mana discovering her mom's wedding dress, passed down from her late grandma. The dress is a symbol of love that was left behind, but that love won't stay in the past. Mana can carry it into the future. The film's antagonist is an evil man who traps people in their precious memories. For Mana, that means a life with her grandmother. Will she be strong enough to leave her behind? Both films are interested in how we make peace with our present life. For Mewtwo, that's finding peace in his own existence. And for Mana, that's accepting her present pain in the hopes of a brighter future. Let's examine the different answers proposed to this problem. Mewtwo's movie opens on its creation. A group of men march through a forest looking for Mew, a rare Pokemon said to cause miracles. When they find its fossilized eyelash, they're able to create a new Pokemon, something much stronger, Mewtwo. Mewtwo sleeps in ignorant bliss when a girl's voice wakes him up. This girl is I2, and she explains that both of them are copies. In her case, she's an electronic recreation of the scientist's late daughter, I. While Mewtwo has a physical body, I2 is a holograph. Holography is one of the best ways to create a 3D image from a wavefront, and based on the visuals, I'll assume that's what's happening. But is this holograph real? Does this light fully capture who I was? Light is a major motif in the movie. In this scene, I too explains that the moon and stars keep us from getting lonely in the night. And as her life starts to fade, those elements vanish. The shot of I2 fading over the moon highlights her tragedy. Much like the moon, her light is just a reflection, and that makes her one of the few beings that can understand Mewtwo. As her life disappears, Mewtwo sheds tears, and I2 explains that only humans shed tears when they're in pain. She thanks him for his tears and disappears. Were the two people? Were the two Pokemon? Or maybe, were they just copies? I2's final words are a declaration that Mewtwo live. Living would be fun, so he should keep at it. In Mana's movie, there's two primary character deaths that we follow throughout, the first being her grandmother, and the second, her dog. Both of these happened in her childhood, allowing time for her wounds to heal. Thus, when she's swept into the past, she's given a chance to live in a world where none of these deaths ever happened. Mana's grandmother died of old age, and her dog was hit by a car. The tragedy being that Mana only left him unattended so she could go see her grandmother at the hospital. Reliving this trauma in her memories is what convinces Mana to stay in the past, a place where those deaths never happened. Thankfully, Mewtwo doesn't have any memory of I2's passing. Instead, what plagues him are the memories of Mew. What is Mew to Mewtwo? Is he the original? Is he a parent? If Mewtwo is the strongest Pokemon, is it stronger than Mew? Or worse, is there something stronger than both of them? The human Pokemon trainer. Throughout the film, the relationship between human and Pokemon is compared to that of parent and child. In the first scene with Ash, Brock compares the slow cooking of a soup to the steady raising of a Pokemon. Parenthood is a major focus in the film, so it's interesting that Delia doesn't appear, but anyway, Mewtwo's immense strength inverts the expected hierarchy between trainer and Pokemon. When Mewtwo is first discovered by Giovanni, he's put to work attacking Pokemon and enemies of Team Rocket. This, he's told, is his purpose. Pokemon serve humans. But this answer doesn't satisfy Mewtwo. If power is humanity's, then perhaps Mewtwo is not just the strongest Pokemon, but also the strongest Pokemon trainer. When he invites Ash and the other trainers to his island, he uses a human to do so, taking control of a Nurse Joy. There's a subtle irony in Mewtwo controlling one of the only humans who truly cares about Pokemon. One of the humans Mewtwo invites refuses to acknowledge him as a trainer. Pokemon are Pokemon, and they can be caught. It's clear that Mewtwo is violating some form of social contract. Mewtwo isn't a human, but he isn't a Pokemon either. Pokemon find their place in the world through serving humans, but Mewtwo is too strong to serve them, so where does that leave him? Mana's movie places children as part of a link in a long line of love. The love that Mana's grandmother has for her is passed down through the dress, to her mother, and eventually to Mana. Mana must live so that her parents' love can be passed on. If she stays in the past, then her grandmother's love will die with her. Mana sits in her memories, paralyzed in fear. She tells her grandmother that she wants to leave, but can't bear to face her death. So Mana's grandma tells her to live for her sake, and for all those who couldn't. Mana's dog dies again, but this time, he leaves her with his love, in the form of a wedding dress, a symbol of Mana's future. He might be gone, but the love he had for her can be carried forward. The dress is proof that they didn't die in vain, that love from the past persists into the future. In Mewtwo's movie, he clones all the Pokemon and challenges the originals, including Mew. And the mirrored battle spells out the conflict. Mewtwo is at war with itself. He has no place in the world and struggles to justify his existence. But Mewtwo isn't fully alone. Among the fighting clones, there's two that don't bother, Meowth and Pikachu. Looking at Shudo's writing on Meowth, it's clear that he's an outsider to Pokemon. He understands them, but he walks and talks like a human. For this reason, it makes sense that he and his clone wouldn't fight, instead looking up at the moon, the movie's symbol for reflected identity. Now notably, we don't see the moon, instead panning up to a cloudy sky. We only hear that it's round and beautiful, but we can't see it. Just like the Pokemon can't see that they're not alone. They're living beings that can coexist, and it's not until they see that the sky clears. Before that, let's examine Ash and Pikachu. Looking at Shudo's writing on Pikachu, it's clear that he views it as a bit of an outsider to Pokemon too, but considering that doesn't come up much in the movie, I'm going to be ignoring that context for a reading that's supported by this text specifically. Mewtwo believes that humans simply use weaker creatures, and if power defines humanity, then it's clear that Mewtwo is above both categories. But Pikachu argues that he likes Ash, something Mewtwo finds ludicrous. When the clones fight the originals, Ash rushes in to stop them, and this sacrifice shocks Mewtwo. His sacrifice brings all the Pokemon to tears, a uniquely human trait. The existence of humans that feel for Pokemon, and Pokemon that feel for humans, proves that the groups are not that different. Perhaps then, there's hope for coexistence, as two distinct but equal living beings. This is the relationship presented through Ash and Pikachu. Witnessing this, Mewtwo flies off with the clones. Where do they go? Why were they here? What matters is that they're alive.
Get down!
We started this essay with memories and mortality, so we should probably get back to that. In Mana's movie, life and death are part of a cycle that passes love on. The man who trapped Mana in her memories was secretly her dog, upset that Mana had moved on. But when they travel to the future, he sees her in a wedding dress and understands. The love they both gave her is still there, even in the future. That's why in the final fight, he turns into one for Mana to wear, a symbol for his love from the past traveling into the future. In Mewtwo's movie, the focus is solely on making peace with your existence and enjoying it. Ai too knows she's a copy, but she doesn't let that affect her. She happily talks to Mewtwo and meets her end with calm acceptance. From start to finish, she's at peace. Mewtwo, however, wrestles with the reason for his existence and doesn't realize his futility until Ash dies in front of him. Having seen the end of a life, he's inspired to go out and live his own. As far as memory goes, Mana's movie is more precious with a concept. Mana starts the movie mostly at peace with her grandma and dogs passing, but when she's faced with it in her own memories, she's paralyzed. How could she leave her loved ones behind? But by staying in the past, Mana's neglecting her present, and she'll never reach her future. Moving on from her memories doesn't mean she doesn't care, it just means that she'll carry the love forward. And in order to achieve this, Mana must leave the idyllic past, survive the tough present, and eventually make it to the future so that love can live on. Mewtwo's movie is controversial. Remember Ai2, the girl we spent a whole section analyzing? Mewtwo forgets that. All of it. Everything we set up. In fact, the only memories he does keep are the ones that plague him, the memories of Mew. By the end of the movie, every character's memory is wiped, forcing them to confront the present moment. And most people hate this ending, including the head writer. I was pretty surprised that Shudo didn't like it, considering how thematically appropriate it felt. Why would they remember? Hasn't memory been a burden throughout the film? The memory of Ai, the memory of Mew? It feels like the movie is quite clear on confronting our present without a why, finding peace instead, and simply living. In fact, this is one of the few things that's carried through in both the sub and dub. At the end, our characters are wondering why they're at the pier, and Misty says, "We're here because we're here," or some variation of that. I think it spells out the movie's thesis in a pretty simple way. I also understand that Shudo's issue with it was that it reset the events, preventing it from leading into a greater story, and how the corporate need for Pokemon to continue wouldn't really allow them to change the world in such a drastic way. I would love to hear from people who've read more of his interviews, but that's what I got from what I read. Where did Mewtwo go? We don't know. It doesn't matter. Much like death, the journey will continue without us. What did you think of these two movies? I love examining how kids' media communicates to them, through design, storytelling, and especially advertising. This is why I made this channel. I feel like kids' media isn't given the respect it deserves in critical circles. So if that sounds good, be sure to subscribe, check out the channel, and take a look at the Patreon if you've got any spare coins. I will see you guys next time.